My name is Kimberly Haley-Coleman. I'm the Executive Director and founder of GlobalWare. I've been around for about 20 years. We specialize in short-term volunteer vacations where we take usually between 10 and 20 people for a week to go and give back in a community, to stand as equals, working on projects that are important to them, to try and make a difference in those communities.
Cool. And tell us a little bit about this project.
What really separates this project and what makes it different, obviously South Africa is a wonderful, glorious place with lots of different influences. And the fact that there are Dutch and people from Malaysia and the Indian subcontinent and all over the African continent, and then people even from war-torn parts of Africa that have come here. The fact that it's even called the Rainbow Nation, this is something that really makes it different from most of the other locations where we work. They just don't seem to have those kinds of, the diversity of tribes and languages and cultural conditions, the wonderful food, all of it. So it's really an amazing environment to work, but it comes with those special challenges because it means trying to work with people and find solutions when there's lots of different ways of thought. There's even different spiritual practices and languages. So there's that. And obviously, with really the first free election not having been until 1994, there's still a lot that's a legacy from the pre-apartheid era in terms of social and economic differences that still remain to this day. So what we are doing in South Africa, which is what we do anywhere, is we're trying to work with and for people to help address whatever the biggest needs are. And in this case, we're really hoping to help kids in townships that may just not have much in the way of resources. And our volunteers have a different sense for what no resources means. You can fall well below the poverty line in the United States and still have TV, running water, flushing toilets, education where there's 125 people in a classroom instead of 1 in 50. And we do get criticized as an organization for helping people outside of the United States when there are still people in the United States who have needs. But our focus is twofold. So on the one hand, we are trying to help people stand on their own 2 feet, do things that are important to them, but we're also trying to help educate people in terms of cultural awareness to understand the real beauties and real challenges of a culture. And typically, a traditional tourist just doesn't see that. They're coming to consume. They're either going to eating at the restaurants, they're going up on the cable car to Table Mountain, they're going to the wineries, they're getting to see the museums. All that's wonderful, well and good. But in terms of really getting to know people and knowing, hey, if you're South African, what are your challenges? Well, you're not going to usually get that. If you go into the townships and see, for example, where we are in Imizamo Yetu, where there are 60,000 people living in 44 acres with virtually no sewage. 25% of the population has HIV, over 50% of the population is unemployed. I mean, these are the kinds of challenges that are hard to see if you're just coming in briefly and leaving. The kinds of people who care and want to know and volunteer and give back, they tend to be in a position to be more open-minded and have a chance to understand the bigger picture, for good and for bad. What we're hoping that volunteers get out of this is that they're getting a chance to see the real beauties and the real challenges. And that is not necessarily apparent when I'm saying it right there. What I mean is a real beauty that we hope somebody sees coming from someplace like the US or Canada, which is where most of our volunteers come from. We want them to see, for example, in a lot of the cultures where we work, in Peru, for example, a typical Peruvian spends 6 or 7 hours a day with their family and loved ones. If I was going to get a bunch of South Africans, US citizens, and Peruvians and say, what's the most important thing in your life? Almost all of them are going to say, my God, my family, my friends. Like, those are the most important things. How much time are they spending with them? Well, in the US, it's the least of all of them, even though everyone agrees that's the most important. So in a place like Peru, where they have very little infrastructure, but they're spending 6 or 7 hours a day on the thing that we all agree is most important to them, this is actually a real strength and a real beauty that it's easy to overlook if you're just looking at poverty. Obviously, there's plenty of people in extreme poverty in South Africa and with extreme challenges, and then there's people who don't. I think it's great for volunteers to have a chance to get to know both, to really understand a culture, and to hopefully talk to people to understand, hey, do you remember what it was like before apartheid ended? What do you remember from it? What's changed? What hasn't changed? You know, when you go and drive from here to the airport, you see miles of townships. We don't see that in the US. That affects a person, affects society. So we just feel that if you're from the US and you only have 10 days vacation, unlike an Australian or a European where they get 6 weeks, when you see them travel, they're relaxed and they're laid back about it. A US citizen doesn't have that kind of flexibility. In fact, most Americans, they've got no vacation the first year they work and then hopefully 5 days the second. So when you see volunteers here, they're running. We exist to fill this gap so that volunteers who are wanting to give back are in a structured environment so that they can hurry and feel productive, because that's important to them, to feel like they're giving back, that they're doing something meaningful quick, because they don't have time to just ease into it. So we try and have these really structured programs so that they can make some substantial difference and get to know people. We've been working more and more with corporate groups. I would say over the last 10 years, this has become a big piece of what we do, because a lot of companies have been supporting their employees. They will allow them, for example, to take 5 paid days off, and they won't make them take vacation time for it. Or they will say, hey, you can elect to get $30 a month taken out of your paycheck. We'll match it with foundation funds. At the end of the year, you can go on whatever volunteer program you want. It's great PR for the company. It's obviously great for the volunteer. Usually it gives them a chance to appreciate what they have, experience life in a new adventurous way that they wouldn't if they were traveling on their own. And then obviously it benefits the community. So for us, it's a win-win-win. And the cost to do the program is tax deductible, because we're a 501c3 nonprofit charity and Canadian charity status. So we've seen a lot of companies start to understand and appreciate the benefits that come with supporting their staff to do this kind of travel, to engage in a way that is where people from the US are becoming ambassadors, global citizens. We've been doing a lot over the last few years to harm people in other countries. One of the key things that corporations are really starting to see are the very tangible benefits that they get by offering these kinds of programs to their staff, because it is, you know, it's a team building exercise. The staff member gets to really appreciate and understand what their quality and standard of living is like relative to places that need help. So they come back invigorated, appreciative of their own environment. So they see what a team building experience it is. They get to see how fun it is to give and have this kind of service. And I think a lot of people, until they've done this, don't know what it's like. When we give wheelchairs to a landmine victim, and usually it's children, because they're the ones who pick up the landmines, they look like toys, it's usually not the kids who cry, it's the parents who cry. And if I'm a parent and I'm looking at this parent and they're crying, I mean, it just affects you in a way that you don't see in another way. Well, anyway, so obviously the volunteer benefits in a ton of ways. The company that supports this staff person benefits, because it's great PR for the company, and it makes the volunteer feel more indebted and appreciative of their employer. And obviously the community where we're doing programs benefits. That's the whole reason we do it. So, and there's a financial benefit, because the cost to participate, $1,200 a month is, $1,200 a week is tax deductible against your taxes, which nobody ever does it for that, but it's a nice benefit. But anyway, so many more companies are understanding the benefits of this kind of travel, of supporting staff volunteering abroad. And it's really what we hope more people will see, just to inspire them to light that lamp, to get a chance to go out into the world, to be a global citizen, see and feel the joy of helping lift others up, working as equals on these projects in varying communities around the world. And that's what we're about. So join us.
Cool.
We need you.
Your typical volunteer, what could they, who is that, and what can they kind of expect from one of these experiences?
Yes. Okay. So our typical volunteer, we are open for all ages. And when I say all ages, there have been people who've brought their newborns, and there have been people who've brought their great-grandpa, right? In fact, we have a lot of multi-generational travel. And one thing that separates this travel from a lot of travel is there are no rules. So for example, if you were to go to Bali or Hawaii and you're married, usually you go with your significant other. This is a kind of travel where somebody might not go with their significant other, or they may just go with friends, or they may go with some coworkers. This is something that separates it from your traditional travel, is that it gets real loose in terms of who we expect is going to travel. We do not require any special skills. No language skills, no sort of carpentry skills, nothing. We teach you, that's what we have our coordinators here for 24/7, is they are teaching the volunteer how they're going to do whatever it is we're doing. So if you're 2 years old, we might have you painting the outside of the bathroom we just built. If you're bigger and stronger and don't mind laying bricks, we put you on that. So we're very flexible about how we put people into projects, but this is a big part of what we do, is we're looking for projects and programs where they don't require specific skills. So we're open to everyone, but our typical volunteer, I would say 60% of them are female. But corporate groups, I wouldn't say that. I'd say it's 50-50 when it's corporate groups. But for individuals who are going, I would say it's about 60% female. And I'm going to say that almost all of them, the people who are choosing to go, are between the ages of 25 and 55. And what I mean by that is it may be a 45-year-old woman signing up, but she's bringing her kids and her parents. But she was the decider, the decision maker, the person registering everybody. So typically the decision maker tends to be female and tends to be in that age range, but they often bring lots of different people with them. Yeah.
And in terms of the corporate work that you've done with the corporate clients, have you do you notice a difference in the way people work together at the start of a project compared to at the end?
Oh yeah. Well, I tell you, most people are nervous the first day because they don't know what they're going to be doing, and they're worried they're not going to be very skilled, and they're slow and tentative and hesitant. But what happens pretty quickly, usually by day 2 or 3, there's a sort of joy that bubbles up, and what I hear over and over and over again is, I just didn't understand that this was going to happen, that I would be this joyful about it and want to just come right back and do this kind of work. Because it takes a person out of that gray, cubicle, dog-eat-dog competitive environment, right? And we just don't seem to find ourselves in many situations where we're actively out using our bodies, working for good, with other people doing the same thing, and it just does something to you chemically. I don't know how to describe it and explain it, but usually by day 2 or 3, there's this joy. People start dancing, singing, putting their arms around each other. Now, I have to say, each corporate project is very different. So sometimes we're able to be very integrated with lots of locals. Other times we're having to build some kind of infrastructure first, and we've got different interactive activities outside of the main work project, which is what we're doing here. So we've got a few football, soccer games we're playing. We've got a braai where we're doing volleyball at the sunset. So we go out of our way to try and create those opportunities and experiences so that there will be the interaction with the community.